Is he under
Yeah,
contract on
so
his sale?
yeah. Well, his future purchase is contingent on his home selling, but yeah, right now I'm dealing with the
Okay.
listing side of things. We've been under contract twice, but both offers fell through.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, so it's been a little rough.
Okay. Yep. Giovanna, what about you? ¿Qué tal? Who have you got?
Well, today was the deadline for the seller disclosure, and nobody answered the phone. So it was crazy, but I finally got so Cassie made an addendum, and
Yeah.
we're gonna extend the time until Monday, and I got both signatures on that. And I called the buyer agent, and he was like, "No, it's okay, it's fine, don't worry."
So you're
So
representing, you're
the
on the selling
seller.
side. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Just so I have an idea. Okay. Okay. Yeah, there's so many things in the REPC, and obviously in the blank addendum, there's a whole bunch of gosh, little snippets. I can't think of the word, but in the blank addendum, you can pull over all these. They're called clauses. That's the official word. There's all these clauses where you might enhance the contract or be more specific about something, and you don't have to come up with the verbiage. The verbiage is in the blank addendum. In the middle, there's a box, and on the right side, there's all these options. It gives you titles, and you can drag it over to the left side, and then you have to upload it. There's a button to upload, and you can read, oh, this is for the closing costs. Or there's a one that says, hey, the seller is going to take your offer, Mr. Buyer, but since you haven't sold your home yet, we're going to put a time clause. There's all these specifications that really help all sides know exactly what's going on when you've got some unique circumstances, but every contract's unique. So you use these quite a bit. Teri, tell me are you just bringing up the REPC, or is it the slides and it's going to break down each section?
I was just going to pull up the REPC. I was just showing them the
Okay, perfect.
addendum that you're talking about. So I will
Okay.
come to the
Oh,
REPC.
good. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's cover the REPC and how to write an offer.
Yes, that would be great. Okay. And if you guys have questions, just don't, because I can't see if you raise your hand. I'd rather have you just interrupt me and say, hey, Robyn, I have a question about this or that. In the very, very beginning, it's actually addressing the earnest money and the where it's like who the parties are. That first paragraph is buyer's name, seller's name. One thing you guys do need to know if you're representing a seller is the property in the name of a trust. And very commonly it is. Well, I don't know if it's very common, but I'd say it's fairly common that someone puts their property in a trust, whether they own it or whether it's a rental. Okay, people put property in a trust to protect their estate, protect what they own. And so I'll give you an example. Today I have a client, a seller. It's a husband and wife, and I've known the wife many years. I've met her husband a couple times. And my assistant, my transaction coordinator, sent over her name and address to the what we first do is like with the seller, hey, title, will you pull up information? And so what we found out was the title's not in the name of either person that I'm representing, although the last name's the same. So right away, like if I represent a seller, I need to know what the name of my seller is, if it's title or if it's husband or wife or grandma and grandkids, like if somebody co-signed on a loan. And in writing the offer, you may not know this. So Teri, I want you to weigh in if what you do. But what I try to do when I write an offer is, because we're representing the buyer if we're writing the offer, is I'll look at the title and the county record. There's a tax ID number on the listing. It's in blue when you go to the MLS. If it's in blue, it's a hyperlink. You can click it and it will show you basically the tax county record. That may or may not be accurate, but that's what I go off for the buyer's name or the seller's name. Do you do something different, Teri? Like, especially if you're in a hurry, like, hey, let's get this offer over. I've told them it's coming. I mean, you may not have time to ask the seller, what's exactly your client's name? Or do you do that, Teri?
Nope, I do exactly what you do. So I just pulled it up so
Okay.
they could see how I got there. So you're clicking
Awesome.
on this tax ID number, which is going to show you what the county assessor currently has. So you can see here's current owner's name. I can tell you, because this is one of my listings, that this is not always 100% accurate. So
Yeah,
you could use
it's not.
this, or I also will just write owner of record.
Yes, and that's what I was going to mention. If you're really not sure, or if there's a lot of abbreviations, because a trust can have several abbreviations in the title, and you might just not know what it is. I get offers and they say owner of record, and that's fine. We clarify the owner's name in a future addendum. So you can totally put owner of record if anything doesn't look clear. Okay. So that's the very beginning. And it says, how much is the earnest money and what type of payment? Is it a personal check, a cashier's check, a bank wire? It cannot be cash. And this is very important. I had one client when I was new bring me $1,000 in cash, and I didn't know we couldn't use it. And my brokerage or the title company is like, we don't take cash. So I'm just going to point that out right up front. And sometimes people are cash oriented, not very often, but they might be. So it's got to come from a bank account they use. If it's a gift, and this is important to ask all these things before you're writing the offer, as you're getting to know your buyer and you're out looking, hey, where's your earnest? I explain earnest money way before we look for houses in a buyer presentation. And I'll say, do you guys have, several $1,000s in an account that could be used, whether it's a cashier's check, the bank can issue that if they don't have any checks. They can do a bank wire through an app we use at the office called Earnest. And there's a fee for that. Some people don't want to pay that little fee to do it, but there's a few options, but they need to know. And also they'll say, oh, my mom's giving us the money. That happens. Okay. Your mom has to write a gift letter, and the lender will detail how that should be written for the earnest money. Basically saying, I, Sally Madsen, am giving my daughter, Jennifer Jones, $5,000. And it is not a loan. It is free. It's a gift. It doesn't have to be paid back, even if the daughter wants to pay it back. Okay. It has to say it's not being paid back because it can't be another debt against the buyer. So you want to talk about earnest money beforehand. So you know, where is it from their bank? Yeah, we've got it in the bank. Or what if they say, oh, it's in a stock or a bond, or it's from my 401k? Well, that's going to take a few weeks to free it up and get it into their bank account so that they can put it down within 4 days. Okay. So that section's a really important one to know before you're actually writing the offer. And so you talk about that beforehand. And it'll say that the money is staying at the brokerage, which is KW, Keller Williams South Valley. Okay, I said that in the wrong order, but our office will keep the earnest money. Okay, we deposit it. It stays until the closing. If your client cancels, your buyer cancels in time before the due diligence deadline, our office will write a check and mail it, or they can pick it up. It's very easy to give them back their earnest money as long as it's within the timelines. Okay. Does anyone have any questions on that? Just speak up. Okay. How about the days? How many, like if your client writes an offer Thursday and it gets accepted Friday, what day is the earnest money due?
Hint, look at your screen.
Yep. Look at the screen. Okay. And this is really, really important because if the weekend's coming, banks aren't open if they need to get a check. It's really, really important. I mean, I've changed the deadline a couple times for earnest money when I just know we can't get it in because of a weekend or a holiday. What if it's a bank holiday Monday? Okay. So if what does it say in there? Someone read that little piece to us.
Real quick, do we have to count the weekends?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And the days, this is the important part, you guys. Teri, again, back me up. I'm pretty sure I'm right. If the contract's accepted on a Friday, day 1 is Saturday. So Saturday's 1, Sunday's 2, Monday's 3, Tuesday is day 4. The earnest money must be turned in to our brokerage by Tuesday. And then our brokerage has 4 days to get it deposited. Typically, they'll get it in 1 to 2 days deposit, if not the same day. It depends what time it gets there. Okay, so let's go back. Let me give you a different day. Contract is written Wednesday. It's accepted on Thursday. What day is the earnest money due? And everyone type it in, even though I
Monday.
can't see. Everyone type it in your chat so we can see. Yes. Why, Giovanna? Count it out for us.
Because it's 4 days after the acceptance.
Yes. So Thursday's acceptance. So Friday's 1, Saturday's 2, Sunday's 3, Monday is 4. So here's the thing. If Friday's a bank holiday or Monday, that counts. But you got to be thinking ahead. I'm always thinking ahead. I'm always looking at my calendar. Is it Columbus Day? Are the banks open? Is it Labor Day? Like we're coming up on Labor Day. If contracts are written around the end of the month, you got to be thinking, well, we can't go to title and close on the 1st. September 1st is a holiday and title companies aren't open on Labor Day. Okay. So there's a lot of things when you're writing your offer related to your calendar. And is your client vacationing? Are they going somewhere? A couple times I forgot to ask people and they were gone, like in Lake Powell where there's no service during the due diligence, and they ended up canceling because they didn't have time to do their due diligence. And I hadn't asked them. I would have dated it differently had I have known. They'd be in Lake Powell with no service. Does that make sense? So I'm bringing up all these examples because I want you to be aware of, there's things you're not aware of. And I wasn't either, so I get it. But it's so helpful to hear like, oh, I never thought of that. Oh, I never thought of that. Okay. So earnest money is the first thing addressed. Then the main section starts. We identify the house, city, state, zip, the county, I believe the tax ID number's in there. And it deals with inclusions, exclusions, all on page 1. Tell me everything about the property itself in it. What's staying, what's going. Does the buyer want to buy something in there like a sofa? There's a section. It's better to do a bill of sale, which if we get to that, we'll talk about that at the end. But they can put in there like the hot tub. Oh yeah, that's staying. Okay, there's some negotiation in there. And then it goes into the pricing. But let's look at the inclusions. I want you guys to, everybody look. A ton of things are included and they're all attached or affixed to the house. Recently, the people that write our contracts put in there that the TV mounts are now, I believe they're in there, right, Teri? They're written in
Yes.
there. Yeah.
Yes.
They didn't used to be in there because Teri and I are old enough to know that nobody had a mounted TV some time ago. And so they, after a long time, they're like, wow, people are pulling that out of the wall, leaving a big hole, and it never got negotiated. So TV mounts are included. When I have a seller, let's just jump over to seller. Every time I'm walking through a seller's house, I'm like, hey, your TV mounts, according to the contract, have to stay. Are you okay leaving them? Your curtain rods have to stay. Your curtains, well, they don't have to. It's negotiable, but it's in the contract that curtains stay. You're looking at that section. That's why I want you to look at it. Curtains stay. Curtain rods stay. Speakers that are affixed to the wall, like surround sound, stay. Projectors, if they're attached, which they are, okay, they may not be in there, but if it's affixed, it's staying. Can people take a mirror out of the bathroom? Well, if it's on a nail, they can, but if it's like screwed in, but it does say bathroom mirrors, okay? So as you're walking around the house, you should be taking notes on every room, just like, hey, what's staying, what's going. Is if people say, well, I made these curtains, and that's why I always ask, are these curtains sentimental? Do you want to take them with you? Then I'm going to exclude them on the MLS. I'm going to put it right in the MLS remarks. Curtains in basement, bedroom, black carpet, stay. I mean, identify the room in detail, okay? TV mounts, if your client says, we're taking them, I said, well, then you better take them off now and patch them up with a professional and so that the wall doesn't look like it had a mount. I mean, that's what I think they should do. What about you, Teri, on that part? What if they say, we want to keep 3 of our 4 TV mounts? What do you do?
Put it in writing. Put it in
Yeah,
the
put it in writing.
inclusions. Yep.
Yeah.
And be very specific which one.
Yep, yep. Okay, how about this refrigerator? You guys will see there's a check box to check refrigerators and it has an S. So if they have a basement refrigerator, a garage refrigerator, and a kitchen, of course, and you your buyer says we want the kitchen refrigerator and you click that box, your client's getting all of them if the seller agrees. As the seller's agent, if you get an offer like this, you need to say, hey, they're asking for all your refrigerators. Do you want to give them all up and leave them? And this is it's such a big deal. A lot of us have bought a refrigerator and a washer dryer because we didn't mark it right or read it right or we didn't represent our client right.
Yep.
And in the end, we're like, oh crap. That said, like I had a seller take a washer dryer because they were so crappy out of her basement, and they were included. She goes, well, why would they want them? They're really crappy. I go, well, it was in the contract, and you guys packed them up, and I didn't double, triple, quadruple check it, and I had to buy a washer dryer for the new client, and they got way better ones, you know, because they worked. So this little section of inclusions and exclusions you want to spend time on with the buyer, and if you have a seller, what's the buyer asking for? But all refrigerators, all microwaves. Okay, there's a few things you got to check. Washer dryer. What if they have a basement washer dryer and a second story washer dryer? You need to specify if your buyer wants both or one. I mean, it says washers, dryers, right? Is that plural too, Teri?
Yep, everything's
Yeah,
plural.
yeah.
This is
Everything's
where
plural.
I see people, like you said,
Yes.
agents have to spend their commission taking care of this
Yep.
section, probably more than any other.
Uh-huh. I agree.
I have a question on that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what about, I'm gonna use my example, right? So I
Okay.
received the offer and they choose washer, dryer, refrigerator and microwave. But what about the seller wanna leave other stuff in the house, like a trampoline, because this is happening to me. He doesn't want the trampoline, he doesn't want the TV, and
Okay.
the buyer only sent the offer with this.
Correct. This is a great question, Giovanna. This happens very, very regularly. Your client can't leave anything there because that's in a later section unless here's what you do. You'd email to get it in writing. I would email the seller or buyer's agent, say, hey, does your client want the trampoline or the TV in this room? And you might send a picture. So specifically what he doesn't want, first see if this buyer wants them. If the buyer wants them, it can be put in writing in a bill of sale for $0. They don't have to buy it if your client's offering to leave it. But a bill of sale very specifically delineates, okay, the buyer has to leave, the buyer wants XYZ, the seller is leaving XYZ. But if the buyer says, we don't want the trampoline, we don't want the TV, your client has to sell it or give it away or something before he closes. Has to.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yeah, that's a very good question. You guys will come up with that. Definitely. And it's all negotiable, but you can ask the other party first, you guys want this and this and this? I had a client recently leave some stuff and the guy was like, yeah, I'll take it. It was that easy. But just put it all in writing. Title company reviews it at closing. They'll pull out the bill of sale and say, Mr. to each party, Mr. Buyer, Mrs. Seller, it looks like the seller's leaving these 10 items at $0, you know, unless there's money. If there's money, then there needs to be a check written at closing from the buyer to the seller for the items that they're buying. It can go either way. It can cost money or be free. You help everyone negotiate that. Okay?
Sorry, if the stuff they're leaving behind is just, pretty much just trash and you want it removed,
That's a great question too.
how does that work out? Do you have them come back and pick it up?
You try.
Yeah.
Terry and I are laughing. Probably you are, Terry, too, because I've seen that happen. And eventually, now it's on the contract says in another section, the seller has to leave the home broom clean. So does that say scrub toilets? No. Does that say scrub the oven? No. Clean out the fridge? Well, make it all clean? No. But it says broom clean and free of debris. Debris is a French word I can tell by that not pronouncing the S. Debris, which has an S, debris is what it looks like. Debris is any physical item. So they know they can't leave food in the fridge or freezer. No, they can't leave, I mean, they can leave paint cans, but it should be discussed, honestly. In the home, yeah, the seller might want those, but I would discuss that. But the seller, it has to get rid of everything. If the seller does not, the seller's agent, in my opinion, has to call a junk removal company, and I have a really good one, FYI, really good, that'll come and haul everything off, and the seller's agent will have to pay, and then get their client to pay them back if they possibly can. So that's worst case scenario, right? Seller leaves, does not take a bunch of stuff, will not pay, will not call you back. That's not a great seller. So the seller's agent's like, well, I mean, they might get the buyer's agent to pay, but it's a seller problem, not buyer. Teri, do you have any experience with this? Do you want to weigh in?
Lots of experience with it. I just feel like it's really, I just highlighted it in the contract. I just found it.
Good.
And I would just say it's really up to interpretation what broom, clean, condition, free of debris, personal belongings means. So Gerardo, your
Yeah.
question, like so many times people will leave junk and you can do what you can to push them to come get it out,
Yeah.
point them back to the contract, but it doesn't always happen. And then we're usually
Yeah.
left to make our person happy.
Yes. Yeah. Now, like,
Fortunately.
if it's like I've had people say, hey, I'm going to leave all my yard stuff. Do they want it? And I'll ask, do you want all the yard stuff in the shed? Sure. You know, or do you want, there's a bunch of cleaning supplies. My client's moving overseas, let's say, for whatever reason, they don't need their cleaning supplies. Does your client want it? You check in, but if the seller, if the buyer doesn't want it, I mean, I've brought home multiple cleaning supply. I've brought home, like, not when it's tons of stuff. I'll call the junk remover. But if I'm like, oh, they left all the cleaning supplies under the sink, I can throw it away. I can bring it home. I can give it to my adult kids. Here, this is for your place. I had a client leave a couple of things that were valuable. A seller, I'm like, do you guys want these? No, we're already in Massachusetts. You can have them. And, you know, and I'm like, do you want me to sell them? No, just take them. And one was a dolly for moving. And a dolly is so handy. I was like, I just got a dolly. So, but that's all, again, you're negotiating. That's on the selling side, what the seller's doing. It's most people, I feel like, leave the home nice and clean. But while I'm looking at, let's say it's a vacant home and I'm showing it, I'll call the seller's agent. Hey, seller's agent, we're writing an offer, and in the bedroom, in these 2 bedrooms in the basement, the closet has a few things, or under the sink in all the bathrooms, there's a few things. We have your seller come get it all. Like, I'll start at the beginning if it's vacant, you know, and that happens. People are like, oh, we're not quite done, or they forget. Honestly, they move and like, oh, we forgot we had stuff under every sink in the bathroom. But you can ask that as soon as you write the offer. Right. And maybe, Teri, would you even rewrite, just add it one more time to be extra, even though it's in there? Would you say all items under bathroom sinks to be removed before settlement?
I would. It's a great
Yeah.
way to protect. The more specific, the better.
I agree.
Yep.
So I would too. If you see that, you can ask them to do it, but I would, everything, you guys, nothing's a verbal contract between agents and even between you and your client, has no holdup in court. There's nothing. So everything you want in writing, text is okay, email's number 1. So even after a conversation, you could email, hey, buyer, take a look. Here's what we discussed for your offer. You want to do this much earnest money. You're paying it with a cashier's check. You know what I mean? You want them to include XYZ. Here's the price we talked about. Here's your down payment, which brings us now. I know there's something between, there's there's water rights, right, Teri? That's a little section there.
Yep.
On the page 1. Water rights, well, does it have a pond? Does it have a stream? Does it have a well? It's very unlikely in the middle of town, of any town, you're going to have that. But if you have someone go out to Tooele, I had a client with a well. If there's someone in Midway bought a place with a water right, you'll come to your coaches for help if you discover that's something on the property. It's very atypical, I would say, in the middle of all the cities we mostly work in. Anything you want to add, Teri?
Nope. Agree with you.
Okay. One other thing, the seller, if they have a water right, they need to disclose it. Or if they have a water share, and those are really unique. Title companies are the perfect people to help you with that, by the way. That's their shtick. That's what they just taught a class in our office. It was really good. I learned a lot. So there's that little piece, and then you have all your pricing, and right under that it says, is this offer contingent? It'll say buyer is or is not needing to sell a home to make this purchase. That's something you'll know. With your buyer, you'll know if they have a home to sell, right? Hopefully you would know that, and hopefully you're helping them sell it, just like Michelle, right? So if they haven't sold their home yet, you have to, and they need to sell to buy. If they have to get that money, you've got to check that box. Okay, and there's a special addendum that within those clauses, you don't have to come up with any verbiage, like, hey, we're a contingent buyer, we have to sell our home. So you check that, or either one, is or is not. And then,
real quick, Robyn, I just want to go back to the math section. This is another place where I see many mistakes.
Yes.
And I want you guys to see there's a cheat sheet. If you read this, it says purchase price, total of lines A through E.
Yeah.
So you have a purchase price here that you're offering, and you have a purchase price here at the bottom. Those two would be the same. And
Yep.
A through E are going to total those lines. So meaning sometimes people will put earnest money and a full down payment and a full loan. That would not equal. You're going to be doing some subtraction here and
Yep.
addition. So just make sure you're always looking right here where it says total of lines A through E should equate to that. So it's just a simple math problem, but I do see people
all the time.
just put numbers in there and it's incorrect.
Well, no, I'll give just a quick example. Let's say their full down payment's 25,000 and they're putting 5,000 upfront in earnest money. And let's say the purchase price is 500 to make it easy. So 500 above everything. And then earnest money's 5,000. Right after that, you can go to, what's the rest of the cash down? It's 20, right? It's not 25 because 5's already gone in. That's what Teri's saying. Pay attention. Okay, so 20 at the bottom for cash down, 5 at the top, letter A for earnest money. And then if the rest of it's a loan, so all you have to do is subtract 500,000 minus 25,000. The loan is 475, and you put that in loan amount. Okay. One thing is the one number that could change during the transaction and doesn't have to be in an addendum. The only one that I know of is the down payment. Like if they go from 25,000 to 30 or 25,000 to 20, as long as they can get their loan and it's the same type of loan, you don't have to send over an addendum. Hey, they're only going to put down this or they're putting more down. You don't have to do that. But if the loan type changes, it has to be disclosed because that's a different loan and you might change your dates. But if they're like, hey, we can put a little more down. Any comments on that from anybody?
I have a question really
Yeah.
quick. So
Sure.
the closing costs are gonna be always on a addendum?
Yes, they always
Okay.
are. They're never in. That's a great question. They're never in the real estate purchase contract or the Rep C, what you're looking at. Nope. They're not. You're always, so again, and that when you're talking to clients that are buyers, okay, you got 25,000 down. Do you also have money to pay your closing costs for your loan? And you should be talking with their lender before you're at the offer stage, right? Because you have to have a pre-approval letter. Hey, lender, what are the costs on this price? What are the payments on this price with these taxes, with this HOA? You're running numbers with your client before they offer to make sure they feel good about it. And then you'll say, well, do we need this? The lender will tell you, hey, we've got to have 12,000 in closing costs or 8 or 10. And you're like, okay, the client only has 25. They really want to put it all on the house. So you're going to try to negotiate, let's say it's 10, that 10,000 on the addendum. And the seller has the option of saying yes, no, or raise the price 10,000 and yes, I'll cover it. I mean, you're negotiating all the way through the offer, counter offers back and forth, but it's really important to know the options. So those closing costs are totally separate. It's for their loan. If it's a cash buyer, there's almost no closing costs. So it's the price of getting a loan for the most part. Okay, great question. I'm almost to the office, guys, so this is great news. Like 2 stoplights. Is the next one under?
Is she to be teaching us from the car?
I was born to teach, but I'm sorry I'm in the car. Thank you, Teri, though, for staying on and having that up. What I want to ask everyone is, because if you want to get off, Teri, I'll be at the office, but I got a new PC. It's really nice, but it has no speaker and no camera. So I was like, oh, I can't do Zoom at the office. However, well, or Teri, you can go do if you're at home, go do what you need to do. Well, if you leave it up there, well, poop, we can't move it
I'm
around.
good.
That's the only
I'm
thing.
good.
Are you
My
okay?
house-
Okay.
Yep, my house just might get noisy in about 10 minutes, but I'll mute it and everything will be fine.
Okay, yeah, that's great. And you can hear us and where we're moving to. Is
Yep.
the next section number 3 settlement?
Yep. Good job.
That's what I
You
thought.
guys, Robyn's
Okay.
doing this blind, so there's a lesson there too. Can you quote the
Yes.
Rep C without looking at it the best you can?
I'd like to memorize it more than I have actually. But okay, settlement. This is really important, guys. People think they're like, what's settlement? Settlement's when you settle up the money and the paperwork and documents for title. It's when you go to the title company with your client. It's the closing day, but it's in Utah. It's called the settlement day, the settlement deadline. It's when I just came from a title company. I met my client there. It's a buyer. And she signed all the loan documents, some title documents, the new deed, all the things they sign at closing. It's hundreds of pages if they get a loan. And it's called settlement. Okay, and this is telling us that's when each party goes and signs all their documents at title. Okay, and each party pays their own title fees in Utah. My client pays the title. The other party can use whatever title company they want, and they pay their fees. Okay. The next section, if Teri scrolls down, is closing. Closing is actually when it's done. So that's when your client's loan money is transferred to the seller or the seller's title company. Okay. So the other title company will call you and say, hey, we got your money. Great. It's funded. That's called funding. And then they'll also call you and say, or your title company will call you, but the other title company calls your title company. So it's a big chain, but it goes pretty quick. Okay. And then your title company will say, oh, it's recorded. That means your client's name is now on title. It's super cool. That's when they get the key. That's when it's official. So people don't get keys at settlement. They don't get keys when they sign because no one has their money yet. The lender has to get all those documents back, upload them, turn them into somebody, whoever does that. And then all your client stuff is uploaded to the county records or some division. I could be wrong. It's whoever's taking care of the new deed, but it's related to county and or city records. But as soon as it's funded and recorded, you'll get notified. And then you can tell your clients, hey, I can meet you anytime at the house to get the key out of the lockbox if that's what you've arranged. You'll arrange with the selling agent, whether it's the garage code or a key or whatever. Okay. I'm just gonna stay in my car since I can't get on a shared screen, but at least I'm parked. So how great. I can look at you guys and the screen. Okay. And I'll turn on my video too. Okay. If I'm on here. Oh yeah. Okay.
Now you're on mute.
Okay. Sorry about that. Oh yeah. Thanks, Teri. She highlighted it. So those are two big sections. People need to know the difference. So when you're explaining this, or maybe in a buyer consultation, you might say, look, the closing day in Utah it's really called settlement. You go to settle all the papers, settle the money, you'll get the key. I usually go through that in a buyer consultation when I'm talking about the timeline, because one of the deadlines is settlement deadline. So we cover that. And then when we fill this out, we do it again. Possession is interesting, guys. Look at your options. Is the seller going to give you possession? Are you asking for it immediately upon funding and recording? Or do you want to give them 24 hours or 48 hours? Or the last option is 1 calendar day, 2 calendar days. And we'll see what Teri does. I always ask my buyer in a spirit of generosity, hey, buyer, if we schedule this just right so you have the weekend to move in, because if I know they have weekends off, could we give them 2 extra days to get their stuff out? Like clean out the fridge, the movers come and move the bed. Guess what's under the bed? 25 things. And they haven't packed it yet. And so in a spirit of generosity, I like to put 48 hours or 2 days for the seller to give us possession a couple days later. And most everybody appreciates it. It's free. It doesn't cost your client anything, but you've got to time the dates right. If you sign docs Tuesday and you fund and record on Wednesday, your client gets the keys Friday afternoon-ish, if they want the weekend. So I'm backing up everything and doing all the timing. Does that make sense? All the way through there. What do you do, Teri? Do you ever do that?
I think it's super kind that you do that.
Mm.
And I love that she presents it in the spirit of generosity. I personally do upon recording. That's just what I've always done. And I do upon recording. Basically, the reason I do that is because as soon as it goes into their name, they're liable for the house and I want them
That's true. That's
So-
very, very true. And I've thought of that. Like insurance, if I give them 2 days, my client's insurance will kick in
Yeah.
and their home warranty will kick in as well. So if there was a leak, the home warranty would head over there. But yeah, you'd want to be in touch. Yeah, that's a good point. So you talk to your client. It's up to them. They get to decide, right? Okay, then we get to an important section called prorations. Just 2 pieces of that. Okay, so it says all prorations, including if there's an HOA, but even including utility bills, they're going to be prorated. Let's say closing is August 21st today, because I had one today. August 21st, the seller's only going to pay HOA utilities through August 21st. Starting that same day, everything else is prorated for the buyer. So the HOA from August 1st to August 21st is a seller debit on the final statement. And the HOA from August 21st to 31st, or 22nd to 31st, the title company figures it out. Don't worry, you don't have to. But it's all on the settlement statement. Okay. There's all these little fees, and utilities, they'll be the same way. So the buyer's not going to pay utilities for the whole month, including, you guys, taxes every year are due in November. And we pay taxes in arrears, meaning backwards. So 2025 taxes are paid this November. And that's going to be prorated too. The seller's going to have to pay January 1 through August 21st of taxes. And it's a credit, and it goes into the buyer's escrow account. And when taxes are due in November, the escrow company will pay them all. And the buyer will have contributed a few months. This is all really important to know. I didn't know any of this before I was an agent. I don't know if I was taught all this, but that's why these classes are so valuable. Going to closings, listening to the person, come to some of our closings. In fact, so you can hear what's being read on the settlement statement. Like, text the coaching people or me. When do you guys have a closing? You can come to any closing I have. It's not a problem. Just listen and get copies and look at everything. You want to review that settlement statement before closing anyway, okay, with your coach. And then so that's 4.1. 4.2, if there's a special assessment by the HOA or the municipality, let's say there's no HOA and it's in Murray, and a part of Murray is redoing all the roads, and they decide to assess all the homeowners, like 1,000 homeowners. We have to know about that. The seller has to give that to us within a week and what it is. And this section, I always click, the seller will pay it up to the settlement deadline. It says prior to settlement deadline, who's paying? Well, the seller, because they own it. In my mind, I'm like, why would we pay before the settlement for an assessment? Okay. So I put seller in that particular box. And there might not be any assessment. I don't see it a lot. Okay, 4.3, I already mentioned the escrow/title fees are paid by the seller to their company, and the buyer to their company. And you guys can recommend title companies, and we'll tell you who we love. And there's one right in our building who's really great, inside KW, which I like, because then it's my office, and then we go there to close, and I grab my gifts upstairs, and they drop off earnest money upstairs, and then they close in the same building. So that's pretty convenient, but you can use whoever you want. Okay, section B, rental deposits. Okay, for 4.3.
Can
If
I
there's
have a question?
yes, ma'am.
So how do you do when you have a HOA who pays for the transfer fee?
Oh, that's coming up. We're gonna get to that.
Okay, good.
Hold that question. It's weird they're not together, okay? There's in the middle of these two similar ideas is letter B that says if there's any rental deposits, they need to be defined out. Let's see, defined. It's like, how do we handle rental deposits? Okay, if you don't have a renter, this is null and void, and that's mostly you won't all the time. Okay, but once in a while, rental deposits, including security deposit, cleaning deposit, or prepaid rent for a long-term lease, okay, or a rental agreement, or a short-term lease, if it's a short-term, like 1 week. I'm just reading this, not expiring prior to closing, shall be paid and credited to the seller by the buyer, or credited from the seller to the buyer. So like yesterday I had a closing that has renters, and the new buyer's like, hey, did everyone already pay rent for August? Yes, they did. And so the new buyer goes, well, then I should get 10 days of rent because I'm buying it as of the 20th. I should get 1/3 from the 21st to the 31st, basically a third of the month almost. He's like, I should be getting on the settlement statement a credit from the seller for all the days that I'm going to now own the house. And if there's deposits that I have to give back to the renters, I need all the deposits, that's true. That's a true statement, because my seller doesn't have to worry about checking people out or cleaning or anything. He just sold his rental. So this is really important if there's rental, okay? And get help from your coaches if you have a renter. in a property, whether you're the buyer agent or seller agent, because we had some snafus. Letter C is what Giovanna just said. What about HOA look at line 3, community enhancement fee, HOA reinvestment fee, and all HOAs are now charging these. Well, I had one that didn't, one out of like hundreds. And you're like, well, how much is it? What if it's only 500 versus 3,000? And in Daybreak, you guys and a few other communities, the transfer / re-enhancement fee is 0.5% of the purchase price. So if the home is 800,000, the HOA reinvestment fee is $4,000. This better be detailed and you want to discuss it. And most buyers are going to say, well, we want the seller to pay. Well, how good is your offer, right? In my mind, it better be a pretty good offer if you want the seller to pay all the fees to put it in the buyer's name. Okay. So, but you can say seller's paying, buyer, or split equally. I try to get people to split equally if it's a pretty fair offer. But if your client's underpaying, the seller's going to probably counter you and say, no, you do. You know, if you're overpaying because there's multiple offers, well, if there's multiple offers and you want to win, you probably better put your buyer's going to pay the transfer fee. But you need to know what it is, and it should be on the MLS. You can verify it by calling the HOA ahead of time if you want to, because not all listing agents are accurate. I hate to say it. Okay, some of them might have it wrong. So you might call and find out. And what was the other option? Or another amount, like, hey, we'll pay 1,000. You just want to put a set amount. You could do that too. Okay, does that answer your question, Giovanna?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Letter D. Who is paying the compensation? This is very new as of last year. Very new. The buyer and seller agree that the seller will contribute 2.5% of the purchase price to the buyer's brokerage or a set amount. Okay. If applicable.
Should we stop on or for a second? I
Yeah,
see
yeah.
this as
Yeah.
a huge mistake too.
Yes.
I see
Yes.
people will put 3,000 or 3% here to whatever you end up putting, and then I will see where somebody will put $10,000. Right.
Oh, very bad.
So
Bad
then
form.
basically you're giving them a choice because the word or is here.
Uh-huh.
Which is very confusing because our other contracts have almost the same verbiage with the word and.
That is so true.
So you guys, this is where we make mistakes, is with those very small words in these contracts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or and
Absolutely.
are very different.
Uh-huh. And I would pick a percentage and I would put 3 in all of them and see how
Yep.
they respond. That's what I'd recommend. And if they come back countering you for less, you can take less. Or of course whatever you put in your buyer broker is what you put there. If you put 2, then in your buyer broker, then you can only put 2. You can't take more. But I always put 3 in my buyer broker and I hope I get it. And I've been countered a lot at 2.5. And the buyer broker says my client has to pay the difference, and I do not charge them the difference. I'm just letting you know. Some agents are like, well, then my client's going to owe me the difference. That's between you and your client. Any comment on that, Teri, from your end?
Nope, I would agree with you.
Okay. Wherever you are is beautiful. Is that your home office, Teri?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, it's gorgeous. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. This is a big one. It's small, but it's good to review. Number D, the buyer agrees to be responsible for all the utilities and other services after settlement. Your client needs to call and put everything in their name. However, sometimes they forget, and I had a seller in St. George, a good friend. I don't usually work down there, but it was a good friend. And she forgot to take it out of her name the next day and didn't tell me for 2 months because she didn't know. And then she got bills, and she's not very responsible or accountable, I will say. She wasn't checking very well. And then she goes, Robyn, I've been paying all my utilities for the last 2 months. They didn't put it in their name. And I'm like, well, we did send you an email before closing telling you to put them out of your name, the next day. But she was in very poor shape mentally, very, very, and didn't. And I could have reminded her. And I didn't think about it because I expect people to be responsible, So that's the big thing your client needs to know. Put it in their name. Okay. And if you represent the seller, make sure they get it out of their name. And then we've got, oh, I went backwards. Okay. We did compensation utility. Oh, number F, wait, is there a question?
No, I just said it's okay to
Okay.
go backwards.
Number F is really easy, but it's kind of a nice one for both parties to understand this. The buyer and seller authorize and direct the escrow company to withhold from the seller sufficient money to pay their mortgage, whatever's left, any liens, trust deeds, judgments, mechanics liens, tax liens, real estate brokerage compensations, and warrants. And you might be like, I don't know what all those are. Well, those could be filed against a property. Not all, but most of them. And it's just important that the buyer knows they will not take that on. The title company's job is to give them clean and clear title. And I love pointing it out to my buyer. And you guys, it's weird. It becomes a huge value. Like, you're showing your value by explaining this. You're like, you're a professional. It's stuff they don't think about, but they're like, oh, that's a relief. Actually, I was kind of worried. What if I get stuck with the seller didn't pay the roofer? Yeah, you could, but you won't because of this contract and the title company. And they go to work to make sure this happens. So I love, it's a teeny part, but I don't gloss over it. I don't skip it. Okay. Next one is, well, who's working on the transaction? Now, here's a tip. Teri, I didn't know this forever, Teri, but will you go up to the top as if you were going to fill this out? There is a way, if the home has been on the market the home's on the market, it's got an MLS number. Let's say sometimes builders aren't, but if it has an MLS number, yeah, look what Teri's doing. You hit that fill update, you put the MLS number in, and then it feels like, do you have one, Teri, memorized from one of your listings?
No,
Let's put one of your,
pull it up really quick.
let's throw in one of your listing numbers, like 209 something or 210.
What the heck?
Oh, that's very old.
Land. That's why.
That was in New York, I think. What was that?
We'll just do this one. 207
Yeah.
0218. Where
So
am I? Here we go.
you guys pop over to the home you're
Oh,
offering
look, I
on.
have some here. Let's see. There we go.
Hey, look what she did. She just loaded up exclusions, address, scroll down a little bit, Teri, so I can see. Or yeah, you can just click fill update. But I go in and add my name. You can add the buyer's names. You can throw the date in there. But as you can see, it's like, oh, there's the tax ID number. There's all the inclusions. If you scroll back down, we go down, Teri, to the agents. Because if you're like, well, I don't know their license number. I don't know their brokerage number. There's a way to find it. But, oh, Dennis Pennington's my old colleague, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it plugged in all those numbers and a lot of other stuff. And you just want to review, make sure like if they're including something your client doesn't want, or they're not including something your client wants, you can adjust what this just filled in, but it's really handy because it covers the top, most of page 1, and it covers this. Okay. So there is a way though. Let's show them, Teri, what if you forget, you can't figure this out? You're frazzled and you're like, well, just go to the offer and click on the agent, their license number, and click on their brokerage, and it'll bring up their brokerage license number. You see, it's more steps than what Teri just did, but it took me a few times to remember how to do what she just did.
Oh yeah.
So you
Sorry,
can
I was
go,
trying to do
you
it.
can go to an agent search, but you can also just go to the MLS. Like Teri, do you have an MLS pulled up? Like just pull up a listing.
Oh, I was just gonna type up the agent's name.
Oh yeah, you can do that too. Click on their name and their license numbers right there. There's Teri's. And then if you click on KW, South Valley over there in the blue, that brings up our brokerage and the brokerage license number, I believe.
It's tired now.
Okay, that's okay.
There
Let's
we
go
go.
back to the
There we
rest.
go.
Yeah, and there's the license number so no matter what, you guys, you need to be accurate and you need to fill that in one way or the other. Get
Yep.
the seller's name, his license, and then the brokerage and the license. Okay, let's go back. And we're almost done, but I can stay a little bit more. I had something that I moved around, which was good. So that's pretty easy. This section, the title and the title insurance, let's at least try to get through a little bit more of this. Title to the property. The seller is saying that they have what's called fee title, just means they're legally able to sell the home. Okay. If they're not, if they aren't, then the transaction stops. Okay. Letter A and letter B only are related if there's a rental agreement and renters. So I don't go through that unless there are renters, and then I go through it. Okay. But it just says, you know, buyers agrees to accept it. The buyer agrees to take on the renters. So the renter's lease cannot be changed. Like if the renters are there through the end of October, they get to stay because it's in all their paperwork and they have a contract to stay regardless of the owner. Am I right, Teri? Is that changed?
No, that's right.
Okay, and that's really important. So if you have a client, let's say you have a client buying a condo and renters are in it, you're like, well, and your client wants to move in right away. And you get you might ask ahead, hey, agent, you've said this is a rental. When does the contract end for the renters? And what if he says March of 2026 and your client wants to move in? Then they're not offering on that property. Okay. But if your client's like, oh, I can stay in my parents' basement, I'll just collect that rent. I don't mind being a landlord. I mean, there's a lot to take on, but if they're like, that's fine, we were going to rent it out anyway. Oh, well, you got renters built in. Okay. That rental contract withstands the closing on the dates. Okay. Now, Teri, could the new owner give a 30-day notice and raise the price dramatically on the renter?
I don't think so, because I don't think anything can really change. So
Okay.
I don't think they could.
I've always had that question. Okay.
I don't think so, because they'd
Oh.
have to have it in writing and they have to give a 30-day notice and you would run out of time.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And short term is just saying those stay in place. 6.2 is letting the seller know that
We
the
can
seller.
have one more question.
See,
Okay, so what about if you have the renters and they have their contract, right? And the buyer wanna keep having them in the house, like renting the basement or whatever to them.
well, so the initial contract that's in place doesn't change. But if it's on a
Mhm.
month to month, if it's on a month to month, like let's say they've been there 2 years and now the seller's like, oh, we're on month to month, then the buyer needs to get in touch with the tenant and say, hey, I'm buying it. I hear you're on a month to month. Do you want to stay? And they drop a new contract because it's a new owner. But if there's a contract for
Okay.
6 months, it stays. It stays. There's no changing it with the new buyer. They have to leave what's already in the rental agreement. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So title insurance, this is really important because it's expensive. Your seller has a fee, a closing cost besides commission of paying for a title insurance policy to ensure that the title is clean and clear for the new buyer as long as the buyer owns the property. Somebody can't come and say, my great great grandpa owned all of Tooele or whatever. Some crazy story that I feel like I've never heard, but I feel like it could happen. But I've never heard of it happen. But there's title insurance protects a number of things on the property, from the easement to the size. I don't know because I'm not a title expert, but title insurance, but here's what I would do. I'd go interview a title person and say, what does title insurance cover? And I'd take notes because you might get asked that. And I usually say, it keeps clean and clear title for you, Miss Buyer. Means no one can come and say that they owned the property 100 years ago or their grandpa deeded it to them on a napkin. And some other issues that could come up related to easements or related to the lot. If there are things that come up, your title insurance goes to bat. They would go to court. You don't have to go do anything. You're insured. The title, which encompasses a number of things related to the property, you're protected. And the seller is paying for it, and it's about 0.5%. So on an $800,000 home, it's $4,000. Okay. Your clients have to know, your sellers have to know what that is up front, that's an expense of selling. Okay. So that's really a big deal. And then number 7, this is a huge section. What does the seller have to disclose? And I just let my client know, hey, they have within a week, we give them a week. They've got to send us a 16-page property condition disclosure. If it's older than 1978, they have to fill out number B. Number C, your title insurance company provides that to you. And I request it right when I know I'm listing a home. I don't wait till I'm under contract. I want to have everything for my listing up front. So they have to provide a commitment for title insurance. And then letter D, whether there's an HOA or not, there's probably CC&Rs. Where do you get those? From your title company. As a listing agent, you get those ahead of time as well. Okay. And then you have to give those to the buyer. Letter E, if there's an HOA, recent budget managed financial statement. Again, if I'm a listing agent, I request that way before I list it. I mean, as soon as I know I have the listing signed agreement. Number F, number G, number H are all related to a rental. You've got to turn in rental agreements, deposit statements, who's property managing, give everything to the new buyer. Okay. Letter I, if there's water rights, remember I mentioned it has to be disclosed within the first week. Letter J, is there a claim or dispute on the property with the county or with the EPA or somebody? You have to get notification of that. Letter K, is it sold by a foreigner who's not a U.S. citizen? I haven't dealt with that. It does happen here and there. There's some, I would ask Mike Carmody what to do on that. I wouldn't know. Okay. But that it has to be disclosed if the seller is a foreign person. Okay. Number 8, these are all the protections. So sellers, what the seller's committing to, and I give them a week at the most. Number 8, all this beautiful section is how your buyer, they have back out periods. They have a period of checking everything they want to check. So the due diligence is also called a homework period. I usually give 2 weeks for my buyer to get it inspected. And what if the inspector says you need a roofer and an electrician? Well, don't inspect it 2 days before this deadline. I inspect it right after we go under contract immediately. Because what if I need a roofer and they're 3 days out? What if it's a long weekend and everyone's gone? What if I need an electrician? Okay, so I do that early on. Your clients can check what are the utilities? They can ask in that due diligence section. You need to review that, okay? And let your client know these are all the things we can investigate in the first 2 weeks if that's what you set your deadline. Letter B says that the buyer can cancel before that deadline for any reason or no reason. They don't even have to say why they're canceling and get their full 5,000. Let's say that's our EM, our earnest money is EM. They get all their EM back. If they cancel the day after or 2 hours after 5, if they cancel at 5:05 on this deadline, they lose $5,000. If it's for any reason, okay, other than financing or loan, that's a different deadline. Okay. But if they're like, oh, you know what? We found another house. Well, it's 5:05. Sorry, you're buying this house or you're losing $5,000. Okay. Very important to review that with them. 8.2, there's two deadlines that are in one date. Appraisal and financing is the same date. I usually put it for 3 weeks out from the contract. You can ask the lender what's the quickest they can do it. If time is a little bit of a crunch or you want to impress the seller and they need it done quickly. Okay, but the appraisal says this first section 8.2 above letter A right there, the buyer's obligated to purchase the property if, well, it is or is not conditioned upon it appraising at the value you're buying. Always put is, unless it's a cash purchase, then there's no appraisal required, but your client let them know and they'll be like, oh, I still want one. I'm not going to buy it if it's overpriced. Well, then they can still get an appraisal and make it contingent. But it's very attractive to get a buyer with cash who says, oh, I'm not worried about the appraisal. I'm not doing it. So that's an is not. And then if they're a cash buyer, go down to 8.3A, we got no financing required. We're a cash buyer. This is the best offer ever if it's a good price. Okay. And good dates. Okay. But going back up just a little bit, appraisal, buyer's right to cancel. If you're buying it for 500 and it comes in at 520, great. Your client has some equity. You don't have to tell the seller. In fact, I never do. we send an email and I have templates for everything. I don't type this every contract, but I send the listing agent, hey, listing agent, appraisal came in supporting our purchase price. That's all I say. It could be 500, it could be 510, it could be 580. Appraisal came in supporting our price. We're moving forward. Great. If you're purchasing, your client is at 500 and it comes in at 499 or 490 or 489, you've got to tell the listing agent needs to know, oh, it came in low. What did it come in at? Well, they need to know because their seller either has to drop down. A buyer can't buy it for under the appraised value. Cannot. There's unique markets where the seller can pay the buyer can pay the difference. Hey, I'll pay the $11,000 difference in addition to my down payment, in addition to my closing costs. Well, then you can stay at that price, but that's not this market right now. Not really. I don't think. But technically, typically, If it comes in low, you're renegotiating. Your buyer can back out and get their earnest money back if it's before this deadline due to appraisal, or the loan isn't working out what they want, or rates go up suddenly, and it's before this deadline, your client can back out and get their earnest money back for financial or appraisal reasons, and that's very important. Okay. So if they don't like the financing, they can back out. But if financing is required, click it. Then this section, Teri's highlighting. Go ahead, Teri. That's good. This is a little section that was created when the market was nuts, and it was a major seller's market, and sellers were getting 10 to 50 offers, and you're trying to be strong and stand out. This section says, hey, my client will leave earnest money on the table between the due diligence and the financing permanently. Like if we cancel during that period, we'll give you $3,000 or $1,000. I never use it right now. I really don't. I think it's a great question for a coach if the market shifts more. What do you say, Teri?
As of right now, representing a buyer, I always put zero.
Yeah,
I
me
also
too.
don't leave any box blank, so I always
Correct.
put zeros.
I don't either. Most agents leave that blank and someone could fill it in.
Yep.
Put a zero. Put a zero. Yeah. Don't worry about it. Put a zero. You can study it though and understand it for sure. And then double letter I says that if the buyer cancels after this, they lose their earnest money. Okay. They lose it. And the seller gets it. And that's all there is to it. Okay. So you need to know the deadlines. They need to be in your phone, and you need to be checking 2 days before the deadline if you're ready to get to the deadline. You're in charge of them not losing their money. It's a huge responsibility. And so you got to have all these dates, and they need the dates too. Okay. If they cancel after everything, I mean, there's different remedies. There is a lawsuit. There is double the earnest money. I would read through that. Okay. But we're over. Do you guys, I can go like 5 more minutes. You guys want to go 5 more minutes if you're still here?
Yes, I think this is the tricky part of the REPSI.
Yeah. Well,
Ugh.
and then it is. You just need to know, read through that, read it out loud, say it out loud, teach yourself what these are saying, and then get with a partner, someone else in coaching. Hey, let's practice reading this and explaining it to each other. And then double check questions with your coaches. It's a really big deal. Really quickly, 8.4 is a breeze. Is there more earnest money? No, if they put down a ton, they don't need to. But if they only have $500 at the time of contract, hopefully they can get paid in 2 weeks and put another 500 or 1,000. I only use that if their earnest money is really low. Okay, number 9, are there addendum? An addenda, well, yes, if there's a closing cost, put addenda 1. If they're FHA, yes, you have to put that. If there's a limited agency agreement, if you're offering on my listing or anyone in our office, you've got to have a limited agency addendum, okay? And you'd fill in the blank and say what it is. That's pretty easy. Okay, home warranty, very easy. Who's picking it, who's ordering it, and who's paying for it? And I'm sure Teri always put that the buyer's picking it. The buyer will order it, but my title company orders it, okay, or my assistant, and the seller will pay for it. The best warranties right now are $700 to $800 a year, okay? So we put that in there. And then these are important. Let's go to these. Well, we're almost done. I'll go to the end. 10.2 says, the buyer acknowledges you are buying the property as you see it. They're not doing new carpet for you and new countertops for you. You see what you get. However, there's an inspection and the buyer's relying upon the merits of their judgment and the inspector. There is negotiation around broken items, but the seller doesn't have to do a thing. They don't have to. Okay. So the buyer should know, hey, this is a 80-year-old house. This is what I'm buying. The inspection's going to suck. That's what it is in an old house with no repairs. Okay, it's as is condition. That's really important. Can there be some negotiation? Yes, but the seller doesn't have to fix a thing. I just make sure that's known. Okay, number 10.3, this is where really important, that free of debris. Okay, go to the next to last line. Teri, if you see broom clean, free of debris, and free of personal belongings, there we go. The seller, okay, is acknowledging that they have to disclose in writing the defects, second line in the seller property condition disclosure. They have to, okay? If they've never lived there, if it's been a rental for 10 years, they've never lived there, they have to disclose, I've never lived here. And if they've never fixed anything, but I mean, if they've owned it, they've probably done some stuff and need to disclose that, okay? And it also says the seller will deliver the home in substantially right above the blue, substantially the same general condition. If they move out with big couches and ding up all the walls, and you've got pictures of the walls from the listing that looked good, and now you see all these dings, take a picture. Hey, listing agent, your client's messed up the walls. This section says they are responsible. It will be repaired, letter E, at the seller's expense. Could be hard to enforce, but a judge would say, seller, you owe money. You get it fixed. So they can't ding up the house. Okay. And so be watching for that. Okay. Number 11 is simple. It says your client can walk through the house 7 days before settlement, or 4 or 3 or 2. And the seller needs to let them come through. It's in the contract. You don't want your seller. What if your seller wants to go every week and or the buyer? What if the buyer wants to go every 3 days and the seller lives there? Sorry, buyer. It says we can go to the inspection and we can go to this. And we can ask for another time, but they don't have to grant it. Okay. That would drive a seller nuts. Okay. Yeah, we can get through the whole thing, and whoever can stay, stay. Changes during the transaction, guys. Once you're under contract, the seller cannot alter or improve the property unless it's all in writing. Okay. Number 12.2, they cannot encumbrance or change the title. Nope. 12.3, no new property management, no new rentals. That's all 12.3, 4, and 5. They can't suddenly start renting it. It's not allowed. Okay. And this is all great for the buyer to know. So you explain all this. 13, authority of the signers. If your buyer is in an LLC or buying it in a trust, you have to have page 1, or what the title company will tell you what they need to prove that your client can sign in behalf of the trust. If they can't, well, then you got to find out who is going to sign in behalf of the trust. So that's important. Most buyers are signing it for themselves. Okay. But the older they get, the more likely they'll have a trust, I think. 14, the entire contract is this, all addenda that may come, and very importantly, the seller's property condition disclosure is actually part of the contract. So if the client gets in there and there's some issues that weren't disclosed and all the neighbors knew and tell you, your buyer, then the seller had to have known. Okay. And if it goes to court, the seller will lose because it's part of the contract, that disclosure. So when I have a seller, I say, do not leave one thing out of this property condition disclosure. If you get sued, if your neighbors know, if anyone finds out, you will lose in court. It's part of the contract. Okay. So I had a client, a friend, trying to sell his own house, his own rental to the tenant. And he wouldn't use me because he's cheapskate, which I realized very. And he's like, well, I'll just find the contract online. And a lender was helping his tenant to buy something. He kept asking the lender. She goes, I can't help you. I'm not a licensed realtor. I can't help you, like 20 times. And finally, the buyer, the tenant was like, we don't know if he's selling for the right price. I go, well, he has no idea what the price should be. So the downstairs people, the tenant got me involved and said, will you be our buyer's agent? And I said, yes, let me see the contract. And the seller, representing himself, who didn't know jack shiz, had not sent over the property condition disclosure, the CC&Rs, the title commitment, because he didn't know what they were and he didn't read the contract. He was in breach of contract. So I called him, and it is a friend. I go, hey, you're in breach of contract. I'm going to represent your buyer, your tenants. They're not going to buy it because you're overpriced, and they know that now. But you didn't turn in all the seller disclosure items. He's like, well, what is that? I go, well, you put a date in there at the bottom, and you didn't turn the stuff in. And he realized he didn't know anything, and I got him an investor, and I helped him sell it yesterday. But it was a mess. Okay, mediation. I always put shall if I'm representing a buyer. If there is a dispute related to this contract with buyer and seller, everyone goes to mediation. In my mind, it's cheaper. But ask your client. They get to choose. Okay. Now, really quick, buyer default. If the buyer defaults, meaning they cancel after all the deadlines, okay, in liquidated damages, they can, well, it says maintain the earnest money and sue. Wait, Teri, I'm not reading this right.
If the buyer defaults, the seller can choose to take their earnest money, or
Yes.
they can choose not to take the earnest money and just sue them directly.
There you go.
Sometimes buyers will be like, it's fine. I know I lost my earnest money. It's fine. But the seller can actually choose not to take it and sue them.
Yes. Okay. That's a big deal. The seller default. Oh gosh, this just happened to a friend of mine. They were buying a house and the seller canceled. And I said, you know that if the seller cancels, you get your earnest money ×2. Am I right, Teri? Oh, she just popped away. That's okay. Let's look at what this says. The buyer may elect to accept from the seller in liquidated damages some equal to the earnest money. Okay. So, or they could sue the seller and they would win. The seller would have to sell in the home. Okay. Or letter C, accept a return of earnest money, deposits, and pursue any other thing they want to. So this, you need to tell your sellers, look, guys, you got no back out. Unless the appraisal comes in low and you don't want to go low, you can back out over an appraisal. That's the only time a seller can back out. If I'm wrong, Teri, tell me. But otherwise, the seller is selling that home. If you're selling. Okay, so that's a big deal. The 17, if it goes to court, the losing party pays. That's 17. 18, no one can change the REPC without it being in writing and all parties sign and all brokerages have a copy and everyone knows. Okay. 18, no one can assign the contract to anyone else. Investors do assign contracts to other people, but they put it in a big addendum in writing. Okay. But otherwise, your friend can't go to buy this and then say, oh, I'm going to sell this contract to someone else. No, can't do. Okay, number 20.1, the buyer must have insurance if they're getting a loan before they close. Okay, number 20.2, if lightning
Hey,
strike.
hey,
Oh,
Robyn, all the time, the insurance,
yes, yes. I mean, they can't get a loan without insurance. Can't.
even if it's conventional loan.
Correct. Every loan has to have insurance. You can't get a
Okay.
loan. Yeah, every loan. And I can give you, Teri might too, I can give you a super competitive, really good insurance guy that answers the phone, meets with clients in person, goes over all the stuff, everything they need. Teri can give any of you guys my number, okay? If you want that, or any other people. Number 20.2 says, if the house is damaged by a crazy act of God or fire, vandalism, whatever, if 10% of the home or more is damaged, your buyer can cancel and get earnest money back. The seller can cancel and they'll give their earnest money back. Okay. It has to be written notice. That's important. We don't have a lot of we don't have tornadoes here. We don't have a lot of earthquakes here. We don't have a lot of stuff. But if there was a fire during the contract, your party doesn't have to buy it. Okay. If it's a $500,000 home, more than 50,000 is damaged, your client has an out. Okay, number 21, time is of the essence. Listen, this is important. Every deadline's at 5 p.m., not midnight. Everyone assumes it's midnight. So I always say these deadlines are at 5 p.m. If you want to cancel at 6 p.m. on the deadline day, it's too late. And I always point it out. Okay, also days, it just distinguishes calendar days as calendar days. Okay. Performance dates referenced with title companies, lenders, every day is a calendar day. Okay. What we did, what we counted was everything. So that's important. And time is of the essence, like let's respond quickly. Let's get back to each other. As I always throw that in. Okay. I don't think it says that, but 22, everyone can sign electronically and it counts just the same as in person. 23, very important. Acceptance is not just someone clicking the acceptance box below the signature. It also is reported to the agent. So Giovanna sends me an offer. What if it's in spam? What if I don't get it? What if there's a glitch? And she's like, Robyn, we accepted your counter offer. Let's say they offered, we countered. They accept it. I don't get it. A day later, I get another offer in all cash and I accept it. Oh boy, what's going on? Giovanna calls me, Robyn, aren't we under contract? Didn't you get, if she doesn't tell me she sent it and I don't get it, I'm not under contract. I'm under contract with the one I accepted and both parties communicated. It is such a big deal. So someone clicks acceptance and Teri highlighted the blue and seller and buyer have communicated to the other party that it has been signed and say, go verify it. I didn't get it. Oh, I'll resend it. You've got to do that. And I would do it in a text, a phone call, because you've already emailed it, but you don't know if they got it. Okay. Super big deal. And then all the deadlines are here. Teri and I would say, hey, give everyone 7 days, then 14, 21, 28. That's a standard and that's good timing. If they want it done quicker, ask your lender how they can do it quicker and put those dates in. Okay. And then put in an acceptance deadline. Guess what this doesn't say? It doesn't say response deadline. It says acceptance deadline. So your buyer, I always give 24 hours at least, unless in the seller remarks it says give us 48. because they're divorced or they're traveling or it's an estate. There's 8 people have to look at this. Okay, I find out. I always ask ahead of time. Listing agent, can we give you 24 hours to respond? Is tomorrow night at 9 p.m. okay? You know what? They're traveling. They're flying from Europe. They're not going to have service. Give us till Friday at 2 p.m. Okay, that's what I'll do. Again, it's only if they're accepting it. If they counter you, they have all the time in the world. There's no deadline for countering. That's a big deal. Okay. Any questions? It's pretty deep, but you'll know it the more you do it. I know we have Giovanna. I don't know who else we still have. I'm going to start driving again now that we've gone through. But any,
So when you're gonna counter the offer, it's gonna be the same before 5 p.m.
wait, say that again, honey. Cut out. Say one more time.
Yeah. So when you are gonna counter the offer, it have to be before 5 p.m. Everything have to be like that.
Not counter offers because the deadlines aren't in effect yet. The deadlines are only in effect once it's been accepted. But if you're canceling before due diligence, it has to be before 5 p.m. on that date. Yes, and I would please highlight that to your buyer more than once.
No, not canceling, Robyn.
Yeah.
Counter the offer. Like if you wanna counter the offer.
Oh my gosh, it's cutting out a lot. It's acting crazy. Let me see what we got in the chat. Okay. Okay. Oh, there was a note taker from AI. How amazing. Anybody else? I'm sorry, it's the service is kind of turned funky, but I could hear before. Can you guys hear me?
That's South Jordan for you. Any other questions? You're on mute, Robyn. Any other questions, you guys?
Yeah, any
Teri,
last-
for the
I-
24 part, the contract deadlines, she said it's gonna be 7 days in between each one, right?
That's
Yeah,
just, that's kind of a
like
standard.
general.
Yeah, you don't have to
Okay.
do that, but I would do that. But again, check those dates, make sure your seller, okay, make sure, I wouldn't have due diligence be on a Sunday. I wouldn't have any deadline be on a Sunday, okay?
Or
a
a holiday.
Saturday. Yeah, or a holiday. So check your calendar, check with your client when you're filling it out. Hey, you guys, here's the dates I'm thinking of. Let's make sure there's no holidays that fall on what I'm putting. And also, are you going to be in town for the next 2 weeks to do your due diligence? Because that's when I lost a client. I mean, they ended up canceling and they never bought. And because they were gone. And we tried to ask the seller agent, AKA Dennis Pennington, to push it back a few days and he wouldn't. And we lost it. And I couldn't believe he was that. Because my clients were in Lake Powell. So check the dates you're picking. They don't have to be 7. They can be 5, 7, 8, 9. But at usually it's 7777 because you're usually writing it on a weekday. If you guys write the offer on a Saturday or a Sunday, don't put anything. Just act like they're accepting it on Monday and put every deadline on a Monday after, like a week later Monday, 2 weeks later Monday, 3 weeks later Monday. That'd be the ideal, or a Tuesday. Okay.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Okay. Okay. You're asking great questions.
Maybe I missed it, but was there a deadline for any counter offers?
No, Sheila, you didn't miss it. I mentioned that people can counter whenever they want, a day, 2, 7. I mean, your buyer might move on and I would be calling, hey, are you sending a counter? What are you guys doing with our offer? There's not a deadline. And here's the thing. I swear, I bet 80% of agents think that the final deadline at the bottom, which says acceptance deadline, they think it's a response deadline and it's not. It does not say response ever on any addendum on anything. And I feel like who is not training their agents? Everybody. It's an acceptance deadline and that's all it is. So Sheila, if you send me a great offer and I accept it, I need to accept it by the deadline. Okay. If I don't, for some reason, like my client's traveling or sick, and we do accept it and it's later than your deadline, I will send an acceptance on that offer with an addendum, not a counter, just an addendum saying, hey, acceptance deadline to be extended to a few hours after we're signing it. Okay, so that we're still in the acceptance window because we've just extended it. And if they'll accept it, we're good. Okay, that they'd have to accept that we did that.
Okay.
Okay.
So if they give us to the seller and then they say no, I want a counter offer, so they leave that 23 blank and they go down, 25 blank and go to the check one accept or counter offer.
Yes, check counter offer and then add the addendum number that you're adding. Like maybe you got 2 addendums with the buyer. Let's say the buyer's doing a couple of addendums for for closing cost, and they're related to their agent. They have to put that in or whatever. And then the seller is countering. So the seller is going to put a number 3. The counter offer is number 3, addendum 3, because you got 2 already. And you're going to check counter offer, put a 3, and your client's going to sign an initial. But counter offer's been checked. And it's very important to make sure that's checked.
Okay. And then there's another due date on the addendum.
Yes, there is. So when I do addendum, when you do, look, keep it at you, Sheila, you do an addendum 3 for your seller, you counter in the price. You're going to, I usually put 24 hours. You'll put one in, and that's an acceptance deadline as well. They can counter you back and they can take 2 days to do it. And they're not out of contract at all. But if they accept it, they need to do it within that deadline. So I try to, give people enough time to sign. You guys don't write an offer at 10 a.m. and want it back and accepted by 10 p.m. What if your clients don't sign it till after work at 6, and then the other party has to respond at 10 and you're gone all night and you can't even send it to the seller? Like, you've got to know your timetable and your clients every hour for a couple of days. Just like, hey, if I send this to you guys in an hour, can you both sign it? And you're on the phone or you're texting. If they're all on the phone together and you're writing it up and you're reviewing it on Zoom, great. That's ideal, right? Or you're at their house and you're on your laptop or you've printed it. Fine. Ideally, you're going through the whole thing. You're like, can you guys, like, they're signing it right then. Well, great. But then I still always, as a buyer agent, let me give you one more piece of really good advice. When let's say Teri's the selling agent, I'm the buyer's agent, and I call Teri. I text her. I would like to call her. Okay. If she answers or if I have to text her, it's the same message. Hey, Teri, it's Robyn Buckwalter, Keller Williams. My clients loved your listing on Pandora's Box. Is it still available? Teri's like, yes, it is. Great. We're going to send an offer. We're going to send it tonight. Can we ask your clients to respond by tomorrow night at 8 p.m.? And Teri will tell me, yes, or they're in Lake Powell. They can't respond for 3 days. Oh, great. But I'm finding out what I need to know. And then I say, Teri, what's most important to your client? What would help us get our offer accepted? We know that price is valuable. What else is really important to your seller? And she might say they've got to close in 3 weeks. Okay, we're going to put a 3-week closing. Or she might say they really want to see a large amount of earnest money, or they want a minimum of 1% earnest money. Okay, she might say that. She might say they have got to lease their home back because they're not closing for 2 months. They're building a new house, but we wanted to get theirs listed. The builder wants to see that they're closed. So we'd like to close in a month, and we want to lease back for 1 month. That's what we have to work with our buyer, the new buyer. Good to know. My clients can't, or my clients can. Fantastic. So it's a really important call because it tells Teri that you care about her client, which is number 1 for Teri. And for you, it's getting your offer accepted. So you want to woo over the listing agent, ask the questions, be super friendly. Hey, we're going to give your clients 2 days extra possession if your client's willing, okay? Or 1 extra day. Or can we take possession immediately upon closing? Yeah, my client's moving out in 2 weeks. Sure. Like, you can ask all kinds of things. And what I would do, you guys, is type it up or put it in your phone so you know what to ask every time. And you're not like, what do I ask? When I was new, I got trained by a guy who printed it, and he had it in a folder, in every buyer folder, because he had a buyer folder and he had a checklist of everything he does for his buyer. Okay. And he kept it with him physically. He is older, like my age, so he was into paper. If you want to do it another way, but you've got to have a checklist of what you're doing. On the other side, like stapled to the folder, was listing agent questions when you're writing an offer. And he had all his questions. And so you sounded like a pro, even though you're new. And you write the answers down. And then you go back. If you're not with your client when you're calling, you go back to your client. Hey, they need this. They want this. They want this. and they want this. How does that work for you guys? How can we make this come together? That was the best thing I learned. And now I know what to ask. I don't need the paper, but I needed it for, I bet I used it for 4 years. I mean, you know, probably 3 or 4 years, just to not forget any of my questions. So that's a big tip. ChatGPT could give you a list. Teri can give you a list. Lori might have a list, and you can combine them all and make your own. But I would just have a bunch of those printed up for every time you call a listing agent, and you can just practice and call no one, just pretend, call each other. Hey, listing agent Michelle, my client's interested in your property on ABC Street, and ask the questions and let Michelle make up answers. Anything you can role play, you guys will make you better at doing it in real life. So that's my big advice.
Thank you,
so
Robyn.
much, Robyn. We appreciate you doing this. I'm glad we could tag team it.
I know. Thanks, Teri. It
Get
kept
it
you on the
done.
hook,
Thank
but I
you.
appreciate that. Okay.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.
Okay,
Bye.
good night,
Good
ladies.
luck.
Good morning.
Bye.
Bye.